Son or daughter, or brave soul who dares to look failure in the eye today, if you're here, it's because something inside you has fallen. Perhaps a dream you spent years building, a relationship you thought would last forever, a project that was your baby, a hope that sustained your nights, and it hurts. It hurts a lot. It's not just disappointment, it's as if the ground has opened up beneath your feet, and now you're suspended in nothingness, wondering if you'll ever touch solid ground again. I know. I've been on that cold ground staring at the cracked ceiling of my room with empty hands and an even emptier soul, wondering if it was worth getting back up. But over the years, many years, I learned something no one told me when I was young, something books don't teach and social media hides. Failure isn't the end, it's the beginning in disguise. It's the seed buried before it sprouts. Today, I want to share 3 lessons that failure taught me, not in theory, but in scars, in dried tears, in sleepless nights, and in dawns that arrived anyway, even though I didn't believe in them. Because sometimes, only when everything falls apart can we see how the world is truly made and how we are made. The first lesson is this: failure doesn't define who you are, it reveals who you can be. When I was 28, I opened my first auto repair shop. I'd saved for 7 years, working double shifts in a factory, selling my motorcycle, borrowing from my younger brother, who barely had enough for himself, and dreaming every night of a place of my own where my hands could create, fix, give life to what others had given up for dead. I gave it my all. I believed it was my destiny, my redemption, my way of proving to the world and to myself that I was worth something. But after a year, I went bankrupt. There weren't enough clients. I made absurd miscalculations. I thought passion alone was enough to pay the bills. And I trusted a partner who disappeared with what little was left. One day, I closed the door for the last time, hung the keys on a rusty nail, and walked home with empty hands and an even emptier heart. I felt like a failure. I hadn't just lost money, I had lost my identity. I'm a man who can't sustain his own business, I told myself every morning when I looked in the mirror. For months I avoided people, especially those who had believed in me, but over time I understood that this failure wasn't a verdict, but a mirror. It showed me that I wasn't so good at managing, but I was good at listening. That I wasn't born to be a boss, but to help. That my true gift wasn't in having, but in teaching. So I started working in another workshop, not as the owner, but as a mentor to young apprentices. I showed them how to adjust a carburetor, yes, but also how to treat a customer with respect, how to admit a mistake without shame, how to wipe your hands and move on. And there, in the shadows, I found my true purpose. Failure didn't destroy me, it redirected me. And that's what it always does. It doesn't tell you you can't, it tells you, try another way. Because courage isn't about not falling, but about what you do with the dust left on your knees. And sometimes that dust is the best fertilizer for new roots. The second lesson is harder to accept, but essential. Failure is the only teacher who doesn't lie. Success deceives. It flatters you, tells you you're invincible, that you do everything right, that you deserve more, that you'll never fail. But failure looks you in the eye and tells you the truth, even if it hurts. I remember when I lost a very close friend because of my pride. We were like brothers. We shared everything, tobacco, stories, silences. But one day we argued over something insignificant, a joke misinterpreted, the wrong tone of voice. And instead of giving in, I chose to remain silent, believing he would come back, that he would look for me, that he would admit I was right. He didn't. 2 months later, he died of a heart attack in his sleep. I never got to apologize. I never got to hug him and say, "I'm sorry, brother, it's not worth fighting over stupid things." Indeed, that failure in friendship, because yes, you can also fail at loving, at forgiving, at maintaining bonds, taught me that time waits for no one, that pride is a luxury we sometimes can't afford, and that unspoken words weigh more than spoken ones. Since then, I've learned to speak up before it's too late, to say I'm sorry even if I don't think I'm entirely to blame, to say I miss you even if it seems weak, to say thank you even for something small. Failure taught me humility, and humility is the seed of all true wisdom, because as long as you think you know everything, you learn nothing. But when failure leaves you naked before yourself, without excuses, without masks, there growth begins. There the possibility of being better is born, not out of vanity, but out of a need of the soul. The third lesson is the most beautiful, the most human. Failure connects you with others. When you succeed, people applaud you from afar. They congratulate you, follow you, ask for advice, but they rarely touch your soul. But when you fail, the true ones draw near, not with speeches, but with their presence. I saw my wife take care of me for months when I lost my job at 52 and fell into a silent depression. She didn't tell me to cheer up or think positive. She simply made me breakfast, let me sleep until my body needed it, and sometimes, without saying a word, sat beside me on the sofa and held my hand. That closeness was only possible because I allowed myself to show my weakness, because I stopped pretending I was okay. Today, when I talk to young people who have failed, in love, in their studies, in their mental health, I don't give them advice from on high, as if I were an unattainable beacon. I tell them, I fell too, and here I am. And in that I too, compassion, empathy, and community are born. Because nobody wants a perfect hero. We all need someone to say, I know how that feels. Failure humanizes us. It strips away the masks of success, control, and the perfect image. And in that vulnerability, we find the most authentic love. Because love doesn't blossom in perfection, but in shared wounds. I've seen many people today run from failure as if it were the plague. They erase mistakes, hide failures, edit their lives to make them appear flawless on glossy screens. But in doing so, they only build castles in the air. Because real life isn't perfect. It's full of cracks, stains, wrong decisions, days when you don't get out of bed. And it's in those cracks where the light enters, and where true strength grows. There's no inventor who hasn't burned through 1,000 attempts before success. Edison didn't invent the light bulb on his first try. He failed thousands of times, and each time he said, "Now I know 1,000 ways it won't work." There's no artist who hasn't crumpled hundreds of sheets of paper, erased entire melodies, painted on old canvases. There's no lasting love that hasn't gone through crises, long silences, difficult decisions. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's its foundation. Like clay is the foundation of a vase. Without clay, there's no form. Without failure, there's no wisdom. Without falling, there's no awareness of balance. And something I want you to understand, especially if you're young, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to fail, because the greatest failure isn't falling. It's not trying. It's staying still for fear of losing. I knew a man who dreamed of writing a book since he was 20. He had notebooks full of ideas, characters, entire worlds in his head. But he never did it because he said, "What if it's not good? What if no one reads it? What if they laugh at me?" He died at 78 with blank pages, untouched notebooks, the dream intact, but dead. That, for me, was the real failure. Not the failure of someone who writes and no one reads, but the failure of someone who doesn't write for fear of not being read. So, if you have a dream, pursue it, even if you fail, because at least you will have lived your truth. And that is priceless. Because in the end, you won't regret what you tried and didn't work out. You'll regret the things you never dared to do. Embracing failure doesn't mean celebrating pain. It means honoring the process. It means saying, this hurt, but it taught me. This broke me, but it rebuilt me better. Because every fall carries a seed. You just need patience to see it sprout, and faith to water it even when you don't see any buds. I've had failures that took 10, 20, 30 years to become blessings. A divorce that broke my heart led me to meet my second wife, who taught me to love without possessiveness. An illness that left me bedridden taught me to value the simple act of breathing. A mistake in raising my son taught me to listen more and judge less. Nothing is lost. Everything is transformed. So, my dear, if you feel defeated today, remember this. Don't judge your life by your falls, but by how many times you got back up. Because the world doesn't need perfect people. It needs real people. Hurt, yes, but willing to keep walking. And you are already walking. Even if today you only took one step from the ground, that step counts. More than you can imagine. Thank you for listening. If this message touched you, share it with someone who needs to know that their failure is not the end of their story, but the prologue to a wiser version of themselves. And if you are alone right now, remember this. You are not broken. You are transforming. Like coal that under pressure and darkness becomes a diamond. It's not easy, but it is possible. And you are already in the fire. And fire, though it burns, purifies. With love, your beloved grandfather.